So I figured a nice way to end this would be with a small impromptu demo. So we'll just take this cube, scale it SZ, SY, and scale it in. Just get a nice scale going with it. Since we have box cutter going, we might as well take advantage of that. So we will draw some cuts, but we will shift to live so we can grab this edge and press Control B and bevel them. And so far so good. Alt X, and we'll mirror it on the Z. From here, we can just Alt scroll up to box, draw box, and for some reason I like drawing box and then pressing W, switch over to wedge. And from here we start mirroring on the other side. And right now the shape is fairly boxy. However, I'm quite confident that Hops is fully equipped with the tools to help you break the box formation rather quickly. So it is always a matter of choice if you want your shape to be a blocky panel or if you want to take it and make it something more. But of course, more is something that, I got to put in quotations because what is more to me isn't always more to you. So, for example, if I wanted to break this box, I would need to apply some modifiers. So I'm just going to Alt-click Dice, which will apply, do a Smart Apply off the bat, leaving us only with our weighted normal. And we'll just roll in some loops, but we'll press T in order to jump from this to twist, and we'll roll it into 3. And then bring it in using mouse movement till we get it just right for a canister. And this is about right. And so from here, we can really get interesting with it. So what I'm going to do is locate the array, and we're going to turn off merge. And we're also going to remove weld because they're just not needed. And I'm going to take a chance and run Smart Apply. And I assume that Smart Apply is going to apply everything, but not get rid of the original, or get rid of the weighted normal at the end. So you see that weighted normal is the only modifier I need at this point, and really that is all I need at this point. And the whole reason for deleting those faces, which I actually did a little soon, is so that I could Shift A, insert a cylinder. Shift A is the classic way to insert things, and I still find myself using it from time to time. However, Two Shapes finale, I believe, is the ability to be used without a selection. So that's something that I always talk about, and it's just a ponder. I mean, nothing important with nothing serious with it, but just someday I would like to have its insertion capabilities expanded upon for neutral selection, but it's just a thought. So at this point, you think I would just go ahead and perform a boolean and get this merged, but instead we're just going to first perform a sharpen and then roll the auto smooth back to get something a little nicer on the shading. But I just want to show you some stuff that I experiment with in my personal work. So one of those is isolating areas like you see me doing, and we'll just press Shift H, so all we're left with is our cylinder. And before we even try the union of the cylinder, I want to select this, and because in my add-ons I have enabled the add-on called Edit Mesh Tools, which is just built into Blender. Once you enable it, you'll have an option to right click to be able to offset edges. And so I actually spent a lot of time experimenting with this workflow in a manual fashion, and then from here I can just control click on a line to get a line to this. It looks like for now we'll need to unhide all the geometry, but we can just select the pieces that we want to keep and then Shift H everything else. And first we'll just select this loop, and under booleans I'm just going to shift click knife to perform a knife project. And that's pretty much all we need out of that circle. If we press Alt H, everything else is fairly good to go. And so the next thing from here is we can select this shape and just press Control Alt Numpad plus, and everything should be merged together nicely. And you might be wondering why I even bother with this sort of stuff in a Boolean workflow, but I'm always trying to study topological control and how that can assist in shading versus alternative ways that it can be done when it comes to controlling shading. Of course, you can just hack the shading outright, but there's a technique that I've always worked with where I just try to get in and understand a little bit more about the geometry and what's going on with it, like you see me doing here, where I'm just doing merges. But there's certain importance areas that I definitely want to keep at the forefront of my mind as I'm working. But the more simplification that I get going on here, just the easier life will be. And it doesn't have to be a very serious thing. Like, I could be aiming to solve this with all quads, which will require that I begin redirecting things and doing things like so. You know, for example, let's pretend that the name of the game is all quad flow. So that means that the sacrifice is going to be happening on the outside of this line. But the whole point of doing a knife project before doing this operation is just to kind of give myself a little bit of a buffer. It's just something I've been contemplating. I mean, someday maybe there will be a cut that will knife project an outline prior to cutting it in order to assist with solving. But I feel that the ST Edit Mesh tool has a route it can go with being a mesh solver. So that is something that we are currently pursuing. So this area is beginning to get a little bit congested. We have a 32 round cylinder, which is already rather expensive. So we could make some hard decisions here. And by hard decisions, I mean we're going to need to apply here. And we can actually slide this halfway, merge it last. And we'll see at the end just how far we can get with this. I mean, what's crazy is that we actually can shift click mark and press X to go to dissolve and press 1 and just start removing points. Press M, jump to merge, and we can just start sliding things around. Press X a couple of times until we get knife. Actually, we don't even need knife. What we need is our boy join. Join's just a beauty. Press X a couple of times until we get to dissolve. In fact, you know, don't be surprised if a little space bar comes to this thing in the future. Little space bar action, you know, besides apply. So let's locate join. And right here, we want to go to merge and just move these. So you can see how, you know, our goal to reduce the amount of keystrokes for performing some of these operations definitely is reduced with this kind of all-in-one mini tool, even though it is a little mini tool, meaning I could right click and just end my entire career and it'll change the flow of my day. And join just isn't taking right there. Let's jump over to merge and try that. Sorry, might have had a lapse in judgment. In fact, join has such a crazy name when you think about it, compared to what it does. You know, not complaining. These are Blender terms that we're going with here. We'll take these to join it, and you know, we need a little slide action in here as well. Sometimes I just can't stop thinking about, we'll undo that. Luckily, we're able to undo inside of the tool, which I find to be quite astonishing. Not that I'm the type of person who would trust a strange undo in the middle of a modal, but it's come through for me so many times. In fact, if we can make it all the way around, that I would call this a successful usage of the tool, in which I would report back to the creator, you know, that I had a very successful adventure, and that there's no complaints to report at this time, which is sometimes nice to tell the guys. You know, it's like, I actually have no complaints. Congratulations. Continue sleeping in coffins. So we'll just join these, and things are starting to get a little hairy at this point. And I was thinking about exiting, you know, while we're ahead and just cashing out, but you know, that's not the point here. We're really trying to get this geometry under control. Every time I do this, I'm just like, wow, this is what you get from booleans. I get so many questions of people asking, you know, what kind of geometry can you expect from booleans? And, you know, probably link them this moment in the video, because this is the honest truth of booleans, is that you're going to be needing to get skilled in the art of cleanup and just making geometric choices. So at this point, I'm going to press spacebar, meaning that I won the game. And if we tab out and look at this, we can see that we kind of destroyed this area a little bit. So we can get that back by just doing a little bit of hardening. In fact, on this side, we have this all quad flow going all the way around, which terminates here, which is interesting. I knew that there might have been a double point earlier when we were messing with this, so it's always nice to locate those and just kind of do the edge test over and over. In fact, we can turn on auto merge and just really start cleaning up the city of crime. And our loop continues, and our loop continues, and it's interesting to see how it's just one invisible vert in most places that will just end your journey. In fact, for this area, we can just terminate early and then just do a junction across just to be nice. And select 2 points, press J, select that one, Control X, and we are just about finished. So, you know, on all models, I always try to just have an area where I just choose to go through a little bit of a battle, just topologically, just to get myself warmed up. But these near misses, they're really something, let me tell you guys. So let's say we did want to make this area just make it. I could just select this, press J, which you see that it jumped across in a looping formation, so we'll just press K and just directly knife. Kind of breaking our whole game here, but now we're aiming to get some shading that holds up. So let's just see what we're able to get here. We'll select this one and control click on the other side, hard market, and that will actually suffice, except for doubles that will not suffice. In fact, why are we working on two sides when we can just Alt X and use something like modifier apply, which will mirror it no holds barred, but still keep everything exactly as we want it in edit mode. I do plan to do a video at some point talking about mod apply in depth, because it is one of my favorite ways to work. However, the behavior of symmetry is also quite interesting. So they're both there for a reason, is probably the easiest way to put it. And so here we've worked so hard to just put this simple cylinder in here. We didn't even have to work so hard. We could have used weld and all sorts of stuff to make it work. However, I just know that when it comes to the point of promoting this to be a bevel mesh, it will just work so easy. So here we are adding that piece, and we'll just mirror that to the bottom using modifier apply. And because we've already deformed this, but we deleted the pieces that aren't there, we're going to actually need to use radial array, but we want to roll it back to 3, and everything just works out, except that these no longer need to be here. So we can just unmark those, delete the faces, and now this whole mesh is fairly manifold aside from that issue. So there's a couple of ways we could deal with it. We can mess with merge inside of radial array, and that's my favorite way to do things as far as merging a classic, or we could have added a weld at the end. So continuing on with our happy little energy canister here, the next thing I want to do is shift A, add a plane, and we'll just RX, and we'll put a loop directly down the middle, select these 2 points and just press X to delete it, and we'll just move this up to the top, but we'll press Control Shift Tab to bring up the Snap to menu, and we want to snap it precisely to the top of these vertices. So I'm just going to grab this edge and move it in precisely to that one. And you're probably wondering, what am I going to do? Well, a cylinoid is what I'm going to do. You've seen me make a lot of cylinoids over the course of all these videos. So I had plans to actually show what they're for, and this is definitely one of them. So we'll just start with a general bevel, nothing major, and we will just choose to screw it, and that looks good. And we can just sharpen that. And so if we go in and modify the bevel, we can choose how tight this is. But we can also press Shift P, and if you've been saving bevel profiles, at this point you would have various bevel profiles that you would be able to screw through. I do plan to someday add a collection of these to Hops, but really there's a ton of videos where I talk about how you can make these, and I want users to be creating them because I know if I just supplied a pack, that would just be the end of it. So definitely get in there and play with some bevel profiles. It's one of the newer features of Blender. As they continue improving upon bevel and mirror, it's just a gift that keeps on giving, and I'm forever grateful for every step forward. So we'll go ahead and add a bevel to this, and then we could select this and press Alt X, but we don't want to modify or apply. We can press X to reset the mirror to its default, and then we want to keep the Z, which means we'll mirror to the Z below, and voila, we've now made our energy canister. You know, nothing major, it's just a simple little asset, just something fun, you know. In fact, you know, while we're talking about fun, let's Shift A, add a circle, and let's scale the circle. And we'll look at it from top view and select this point and press Control plus a couple of times until we're over our wedge area. And we can just press Control I, get rid of everything. And there's a couple of different ways you could approach making pipes and things in Blender and getting a nice rotation or a nice bevel happening. One of my favorite ways for some reason is to work with the geometry somewhat simple like you see here, and then just bevel it, and then put a subdivision on it, and then under Mesh Tools, convert that into a curve using Curve Extract, and it's pretty much good to go. And that's the end of that. So at this point, we can actually convert this to a mesh, and then by control clicking radial array, we can radial array it around a 3D cursor, basically adding a nice little hook piece in here. And we could go a little bit further. I mean, another thing I also like talking about is Smart Apply, which if you shift click Smart Apply, it'll make a duplicate of the mesh, which will allow you to just select something and just work on it as if it's been applied, but it's a derived mesh, and really you should delete the mesh ASAP because it's sitting on top of your real mesh. So you see how I have things selected on one side of it but not on the other? Well, I can press Alt X, Alt Scroll to modify or apply, and then when I use modify or apply, it will actually have the selection done on the other side. And that's just a behavior I've noticed with mirror that isn't present on any of the other mirror tools like symmetry and stuff. I mean, I'm probably going to check into having the mode kept afterwards. You know, I'm pretty sure after some of the previous stuff we were talking about, that's probably something that could be improved with mirror as well. Keeping it in edit mode when you use it in edit mode, or at least returning you to edit mode. So for this, we will convert it to mesh, and under Mesh Tools, we will just radial array on the Z, select both of these, and we didn't want to modify or apply because that means that this story is done. And you know, for the purposes of this video, it's fine. But you know, let's get weird. Let's say that we wanted this thing, but we don't want all this modifier baggage. So if we extract it in edit mode, it's not going to work out. So if we shift click Smart Apply, we can select this loop, and it won't select any of the other loops. And we're just going to Control I, delete everything associated with it, select the bottom, Control plus to grow it. Because I'm on the desktop, I don't have to, you know, shift click mark and then control scroll in order to adjust it. But just know that I use that all the time on the laptop, and I'm so grateful for its existence every time. And I think I'm going to check into maybe seeing about having an additive selective mode done for that. That behavior feels a little off, but here I am thinking about development all the time. I'm trying to stop. My New Year's resolution is to chill out a little bit. Some would say that I'm tool crazy. So we'll bring this in all the way. Why not? Just select everything, right click, and just merge by distance. And we want to make sure that there's no extra garbage in the selection, and it appears that there is because this panel was hidden so long ago, and we just need to get rid of it. So now we are ready. So we'll bring it in, put a level of sub D on it, and then just curve extract. And really there's no wrong way to do your piping as long as you get your piping done and that you're using HardOps. I'm just kidding. But as long as you get your piping done, that's all that matters. We'll select both of these, Alt X, and we'll just press X to reset. And so far so good with our canister. And the best part is that if we wanted to, we could select only a certain region of this and dice it and have it even more deformable, because right now we have our loops allowing us to deform it on the Z, but we're not going to be able to bow it out, which is something I always do with these canisters. So in order to deal with that, I've just been kind of pondering it in the back of my mind over the course of this video as I'm talking to you guys, hopefully distracting y'all. But what I need to do is select this, grow it, and get rid of anything that doesn't need to be diced, like this stuff. And one of the features I never talk about is using dice in a localized region. Someone once mentioned in the comments how dice needs the ability to rotate, you know, completely true. In the meantime, we do have 2 dice. I mean, right now you see me using it in edit mode on a selection, which is also very nice. If I wanted to, I could have an object in object mode, and it'll dice this object, but place it on this object using that region or rotation. But in this case, we need something a lot more specialized, a lot more focused, and a lot more precise on the geometry, because we don't want to dice anything that isn't what is selected, what is not selected. So we're working our way through. Knife project, how you're going to treat us. That is how knife project is going to treat us. Excellent. One moment. Technical problems happen, but let's see how Blender does at overcoming them. So we'll recover our autosave, which I'd never saved, and here we are right where we left off. In fact, no harm, no foul. And because we were able to survive just crashing, thank you Blender, we will power save this. I'll just call this Cannister. This year, instead of boxes, we'll be talking about different objects, but we actually want to dice this, but we don't want any of the beef that we just had. In fact, let's try that again. I just gotta see. I'm sorry, I'm a curious soul. I have to know. Why did it happen? Why did it happen? And also, no shame in crashing in the middle of a video. It always allows me to talk about Blender's autosave capabilities, which are just superb. So Q, dice, and we're looking at it on the Z, and more than likely it's going to crash right here. We should cancel it, save it, dice it, because if we know it's going to crash, we should just... Oh yeah, Blender? You're not going to crash, huh? So now we have this very nice diced area. You know, I'm just going to roll with it now as if I intended this. Like, yeah, Blender's not going to crash, you guys, but just saying, if you're using Blender 2.92, just know that it's like tough. For the stinger at the beginning of the video, Blender was crashing all throughout that. So eventually I had to go back to the LTS version. I was like, thank you, LTS. You know, something else is that this bar takes up too much room, and we can't really wrap up this video just yet. I mean, we can. I could just, in fact, I see that we're at the half-hour mark, so we probably should. That means my girlfriend's going to be showing back up, or the cat's going to come back in here and make a big ruckus like she did earlier. And I'm just hiding empties because I just hate seeing them. In fact, I'll press Alt-H, press M. Are we in local mode the whole time? Wow. Alright, so we've been in local mode the whole time too. Maybe could have been adding to the crash, but you know what? Impressive. We've just been in local mode the whole time. I'm gonna have to rewatch the recording and see how long I was in local mode, but sorry, getting off topic. So what I want to do at this point is have everything selected, and we're just going to try adding a lattice, and we'll put a couple of segments on the Z, and by segments I mean one, and we'll select these segments in the middle and just stretch this out so it looks a little bit like a kegerator. And then we'll just press Q and just add more segments to the lattice to really smooth it out. And so now this is our shape. So something a little bit more oblong. However, one of the things I like about the new modifier scroll is that if you need to recall an object like lattice, you can just shift click it and it will just bring it back for you. So I am going to simplify this lattice and we'll bring it down. And for this, we'll actually bring the lattice up above mirror. and it looks like there is no mirror. So let's Alt X, add a mirror. And we also want to do the same thing to this. So if we collapse our modifiers, we can see that we need our lattice before the mirror, so everything takes place in the right area. And now we can have some fun with this form without compromising it. So, you know, the point of this was to just get in and just show you guys how, you know, you could just have a little fun with HardOps with just making a little kind of kegerator energy canister. And then, of course, you select everything and control click on material scroll to just give it all the materials in the world, all the materials it ever wanted. And we can't even see what they are. Here we are. So this material needs a rescroll till we find something a little more acceptable. This one, rescroll. And here we are looking at something a little bit more akin to what I would like to render. Even though this area looks a little devastated, I'm pretty sure we could baby this to perfection. But the whole point of this was to just talk about workflows and end this on a good note. You know, I want all these demos to have a segment of me kind of demonstrating the tools, just like I used to do in classic demos. Just know that I could select this piece at any time, control scroll back to the first one, press Shift P, and just scroll through endless combinations of different types of tops on this thing. And 1 and 3 of them are going to look sick. You know, some of these are like the letters M and X that I made in the graph, which are pretty funny. Sometimes they actually look pretty good on an environment. But there we are, swapping it out to something else. And we could even grab these and press GZ and move them up and just continue reforming this thing. In fact, if we want to take this even further, we can Shift D, duplicate it, and we want to turn off the mirror, turn off the lattice. They're not needed where we're going. R4, 5, press period. We'll go back to medium point because we don't need 3D cursor as our rotation point. And the whole point was to make sure that our circle is still looking good. And we could take this little thing and just radial array it. However, in order to do this, we would need to begin applying some modifiers. So we should talk about applying the screw. In fact, for this one time, let's try just applying it without actually applying the right modifiers in order. And we see that that did not work out. It just did not. So let's change this to be let's just remove it. You know, I had to sit there and ponder it for a moment, like, wow, what could I have done to this? And we'll just put a new bevel in here, scroll it up once so it doesn't look like that. And now that we have this, we can just adjust the bevel. We can adjust our micro bevel, which doesn't do anything. Control roll the wheel up 1, and we can press Shift P and just begin scrolling through profiles until we get something that looks acceptable. However, we will need to turn off the second one in order to ensure that we don't get anything weird happening. In fact, I accidentally set custom profile on the wrong one. So we're going to need to remove that bevel. Look at me trying to rush to the end to start making all sorts of beginner mistakes. Sorry about that, viewers. So now we can select this and control click radial array. And we see that things aren't just right. So once we apply our rotation, then we can actually radial array this the way that we want to in this particular situation. So by selecting both of them, we can now mirror this also below. And so we've now filled these holes with some little cylinoid pieces that we just made on the fly with just a bevel plane. And then we can still go in here and adjust the bevel, change the profile to whatever we want it to be, and it will just take place throughout the rest of the model. In fact, to fix this last bevel, because we did mess it up, you know, let's be honest. I'm just holding control and scrolling. Let's try that again. This is the one we want, and we want to press, let's see, Control P to return it back. And let's turn it back on and just lower our angle to something a little more acceptable. Press 1. And here we are looking at our final results. Sorry about that. You know, just wanted to end that on a positive note. The other thing is that we can grab this plate in the middle and just assign a blank material on it. And the thing about material scroll too is that whatever material you have selected is the one that you will scroll through. So if I were to press Alt M and Control click on this, let's try that again. Now I'm changing the material in index 2, and I can press C if I want to begin injecting this with color, or press T to begin changing its type. But blank material is always my favorite, and so I could even go to the first blank material, press Alt M, Control click, and begin scrolling through combinations with this as well to change it to whatever I'd like it to be. So to wrap this up, what we can do is just select everything and click on Manage. So first we'll just neutral click it to just unify. And then we can control click it to evict everything that isn't essential to this. And let's come out of this mode that we're in. And we also want to evict that too. I don't know why that didn't get evicted. I guess we'll leave them behind for now. And this collection that we're in is just Cannister. So we can right click new collection. Maybe we want to place our new collection in the base area, not inside a freaking collection. So now we can just shift a collection instance, Cannister, GZ1, and just place a couple of these around. You know, nothing major, just gotta present these canisters as if they're sitting somewhere. You know, sometimes it's also nice to rotate them and try to lay them on each other, but definitely watch out for those intersections. So now I could just grab these three, move them to the center, Shift A, bring in a plane, and we'll just place a blank material on that. And first Alt VV just to find the right environment, so just something basic, and then Alt VB in order to scroll through blank light configuration. So just like that, we have set up and began rendering, and even gave a quick lighting rig to our basic canisters. So from here we can deselect everything, press Q, add a camera, and if your camera's not right, you can always just move your empty up, even scale the empty to just mess around with your camera, which is just a fun way to get things under control. However, I also like to ensure that my center is exactly where I want, and from here we can actually mark a depth of field target like this canister, lowering the depth of field around it. And whenever we go in here and begin scrolling or begin playing the timeline, we can see the animation taking place. If you want it to take place longer, under the Q menu and settings, under frame range options, just by clicking this, you can have an F9 to change how big you want your frame range to be. But just using it without even changing anything, it'll set your frame range to 6,000, which will help you get a little bit closer to what you're probably wanting if you're bringing it up in the first place. So I use it all the time just to set my frame range to 6,000. So to close it up, I will just control click the logo and scroll up my paddle and just play a little Pong. And with that, we can wrap up this video. And so hopefully you guys enjoyed this latest update. There's a couple of things I of course wanted to talk about, but we'll save that for pickup content in the future. But with that, we'll wrap this up, and I hope everyone's enjoying HardOps 00987 Francium. So I was just watching this thing rotate, you know, as I was about to export the video, and I figured I could come back in and actually do something about the way that it's sitting. So let's just take a look at this real quick. So this one is like super balanced in a way that it would just never happen. So let's see if we can get in and just adjust this. You know, nothing perfect unless we want to do a simulation, but you know, I feel we can get a little bit better than that, so it's not an eyesore when we're watching it pass by. So we don't want to penetrate anything too bad. You know, these two things looping look kind of cool. For this one, we'll just rotate it over just a tad. You know, wireframe mode looks quite nice when you get to looking at it, you know, for a bunch of meshes made with booleans, you know. So we'll press RXX just to rotate on its local x-axis, RXX, and get that right. And we'll rotate this as well. And let's look at this transitioning by in the camera again. And I think before I got distracted by Pong, you know, don't add Tetris to hops. That would just be the end. I would never be paying attention to what's going in the background. But the idea with having the animation play and being able to play Pong is kind of a throwback to this game Fanavision on PS2 that I'm obsessed with, where you blow up fireworks. Like, there's all this stuff happening in the background, but you're just focusing on these fireworks to impress the people below. Just was a really interesting concept for a game. There hasn't been a game since. PS5 has no launch games, might I add. So we'll press home over the timeline in order to see the whole thing. And we're just rotating around looking at things. And it is rotated over on that thing, which helps it make a little bit more sense. And you know what's crazy is we can still modify this even after the fact. I mean, I know this video's over. I'm terrible, but let's select this. And let's also enable our selection so we can see what's going on. And we'll just go under bevel and control scroll up and press Shift P to enable profile scroll. And we just want to find something with a hollow center up top. I mean, we can cut something hollow in the center, and really all these are perfectly acceptable. For example, let's go with this one. Also, I love how these profiles come in with perfectly the amount of segments, because I remember doing these all quite randomly when I was making them. So we'll go with that one, and then just grab both of these and just move them back down. And we'll select this and shift click Smart Apply, which will give us a duplicate. And we'll select that and delete everything else but what we had selected. Just real fast, because I don't know. Just since Smart Apply duplicate has been a thing, I've just worked on duplicates much faster now, because I just don't want to get them confused with the real meshes. So now we have some pulsing lights. Of course, we can't leave out pulsing lights in a tutorial. In fact, we could do the same things with this. What's interesting is we could tap into edit mode and just control click on curve extract, which will give us curves in all the areas. And I just want to bring this in about there, and we can just turn these into curves, and we'll give this the same emissive material completing this thing. And we'll jump back to collection 1. And if we look at this, you know, these frames where the floor is like super duper bright, I just don't know about those. Also, depth of field is just way too out of control, especially with the object looking us in the face. So you always got to watch it with depth of field. If you're around 0.1, you know, you probably got some problems. So let's continue looking at this. And another thing that I also didn't talk about, and I should have, is the scale of this thing. You know, we have utilities that will tell you the scale, so let's just select everything. Go under operations and choose AccuShape. And this thing is 3 meters tall, so I'm gonna need to see what that is in feet. Oh, that's under 10 feet tall. Alright, so 10 feet tall is a canister that'll never be able to be carried by a man. In all honesty, the height of this thing is probably about 2 feet. It's like a 2 foot tall canister. So we could try using lattice for this. However, I'm going to just press E. Well, not E. Shift E, I believe. Shift E to toggle exit, adding an empty. So instead of scaling it down using a lattice, it'll scale it down using an empty. And we click. And now the object has been scaled down. However, we did not get our lattice in there, which is also important. So what I can do is we'll click on this, bring up modifier scroll, and just control click lattice to bring, or shift click lattice to bring back the lattice. And we'll just parent this to this object just for now. I know it's kind of weird, but it'll work out for us. So let's just hide that. We'll select everything again, bring up AccuShape, Shift E. We're specifying that this thing is 2 feet tall, indicating that it can be carried by a man. And if we press spacebar, we've now shrunken it down. And if we press Alt H, we could see that our lattice was scaled down to fit it as well. So, you know, there might be a time when AccuShape will check for recursively object-related objects and grab those two in order to do the transformation. But we've definitely messed up what we have on frame number 1. So let's just Alt G, place these. If you don't have your scale right, this is what will happen to you. You'll be coming back at the end, readjusting your render scene in order to have your depth of field be accurate because your scale is off. So this is something that I've gotten used to doing as well, especially for my Patreon files, just double checking AccuScale and making sure everything's to scale for kit bashing purposes. Just a little fun extra you can do with Hops now that has become more and more integral to my life. So sorry for extending this video on so long by talking about these itty bitty shapes, but we see that this object is much smaller because of what we've done. But this is for the better, and we'll even raise the camera up just a little bit, jump back into rendered mode, and no harm, no foul. In fact, I'm going to Control Shift S, and we'll save this as Cannister1_1. I always use underscores whenever I'm going deeper in my file systems, but now we can see that things are looking a little bit better. In fact, we can actually change the environment just pressing Alt VP, and I'll just shift scroll through environments until I find one that particularly works for me. Maybe something like that, and then I can press Alt V, B for blank lights, and we could scroll through the blank lights until we get something more acceptable. You can also see that the camera's depth of field is a little bit back to being out of control, and that's because our scale's been improved. So we just bring that back to something more reasonable, and now we are looking at a much better result than what we had previously. I was a little bit hackish and lazy when it came towards jumping to the conclusion, but now that we came in and got everything refined to scale, hopefully you should be able to see it all the way down to the reflections and depth of field and the way that the camera behaves. It's just important to work to scale, and hopefully I can continue improving upon that going forward in future contents to try to drill better habits into you guys. So my apologies for that, but of course always keep it conceptual, but whenever it matters, get it down to scale. So with that, I'll wrap up this video. Sorry for ranting 10 minutes extra. I'll see you guys next time.